Hi, I'm Sheila Rondeau, and I'm the CEO of MOGXP. MOGXP is Marketing Operations with Experiential, and we are an experiential agency that specializes in bringing brands and consumers together in memorable moments. This podcast is about my passion, which is working with business leaders within our community and looking at leadership. So, Legends in Leadership bring together some of the most amazing community leaders. And today I'm honored to have Chris Kleinert. And Chris is part of a legacy family who has done amazing things in business through the different Hunt corporations, as well as through the community in the charity that he and his wife Ashley have set up, and then also through giving his time as well as resources to many of the charities in our communities. So, Chris, first of all, thank you for being here.
I'm honored. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
I went through your resume multiple times, and there are so many businesses that you have co-founded, founded, and worked to help grow and build, but then also through those businesses, help the community in building other businesses. Tell me where you hang your hat.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm honored. The resume is so confusing. I definitely need to fix it. So I truly think I have the greatest job in the world. I get to work for an incredible man. I get to represent an incredible family. I get to, well, I started in 1996 and I joined what at the time was a brand new investment group. So Ray, my father-in-law, Ray Hunt, Ray would always find interesting things to do. And what he would do within Hunt Oil he'd essentially draft a couple people that he thought would be the best for that particular investment or particular project. And so I don't know this to be factual, but I imagine people came to him and just said, we have a day job. We can't, this is tough to do. It's great to do. And he thought, you're right. We're starting to do this with more frequency. Let's build a team. And so he hired a senior individual. His name was Steve Smiley. And Steve needed a young analyst. And I never thought I'd come work for the company. But in 1996, I left a great job at Texas Commerce Bank, which ultimately today is part of JP Morgan Chase. And I left that job to be a young analyst at Hunt in the investment group. And from there, just the way things evolved, we made a couple investments. We did pretty well in those. And so the idea was, and this was kind of at the advent in a sense of private equity. We were certainly not the first. Others had paved the way of raising funds to then go do more investments. So we raise a fund, and surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, investors want to know exactly what you're going to do. So the investors said, our pitch was, we're going to look at these kinds of companies, generally speaking, kind of 25 to $100 million in revenue companies, and we would invest, X amount of dollars. And so we raised this fund to go do so. And as soon as we raised the fund, Ray looks at our team, because we had 4 people on the team, said, great, you 3 go get it. And we're like, wait a second, there's 4 of us. And he kind of looked at me, and this is, I say facetiously, but it's true. He said, I want you to go do everything else. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, go figure it out. And so, there I am, I don't know what I'm doing fundamentally, but I had some great leadership kind of training under Steve Smiley. And next thing I know, I'm trying to navigate what does everything else mean? And that just led to just an amazing series of things, and starting some different activities within Hunt, and then gradually overseeing the real estate group and a couple other things. And that's maybe why the bio is so difficult to understand. It's kind of moved all over, but it's been fantastic.
That's fun. So it looks like you made a lot of those positions through passion or necessity.
Well, both, trial and error. And, so much of my career, and when I get the opportunity to be around young people, it was impressed upon me, it's the quality of your network that's going to, if you don't really get out there, and I'm not by nature one that loves to go to events and activities and dinners and all that, I'd much prefer to be home with Ashley and our kids or do whatever, at the time, but you don't really build a business that way. You don't build your network that way. You've got to put yourself out there. And just we've been, I do believe this is answered prayer. We've been able to meet some great people, and the ability to select those that would make for great partners or leaders of companies into which we could make impactful investments. And it's just led to, a pretty amazing run for us.
Fantastic.
And just, again, very thankful.
You also have some new endeavors going on. I know right now Ashley's got one going on that you're passionate about.
Yeah, well, she does. She's remarkable. She's incredible. I'm so thankful. She started a food truck business in 2010, and she was a stay-at-home mom, but incredibly involved in sort of following her mother's footsteps. She was very involved with nonprofits in the community and at our kids' schools where they attended, and can put an event on in her sleep. She's incredibly creative, very talented. And she went to this conference and she came back and said, I see the future, and the future's food trucks. And I'm like, excuse me? And the joke is she doesn't cook, and she would self-admit, this is not me, she would self-admit she's a terrible driver. I'm like, so tell me about the food truck. Why? Help me understand. And she said, I heard grilled cheese, comfort food. I love grilled cheese. I think we could do this. I think it'd be fun. Okay, so we get into the food truck business. We have all kinds of interesting stories and travails, but it worked. She was one of the very first themed trucks in town. She's built an incredible following. And over time, one of the challenges with the food truck business is hiring. Mm-hmm. And not just hiring, but retention of really good people. Okay, so what we found over the 14 years now that we've had the food truck is, and this goes to community involvement, and especially the more you engage, the more you begin to see where challenges are. And she has a passion, Ashley, and I do as well, that not everybody really even gets a good first chance, let alone a second chance.
Right.
Okay, and so where are opportunities that we can employ people that otherwise might have difficulty getting employment or have never really had the opportunity to get employed, meaning their life trajectory was such that they had so much challenge, they may not have finished high school, they just didn't see hope. And we had an opportunity through relationships that we've had to find young talent that just needed a chance. And we talked earlier about the enthusiasm about being around high energy, positive people. And these young kids that you might look at and say, wow, I'm so sorry for your story. Well, how ignorant a comment is that to make? They're so fired up to have a chance that I'd hire them over anybody, right? They just can't wait to get started. And so the whole point of that is the food truck has evolved. St. Philip's School and Community Center, we love St. Philip's. St. Philip's is on Martin Luther King Boulevard. It's on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But right in front of that is Martin Luther King Boulevard. And it's a really tough area. And Terry Flowers, the headmaster at the school, and those that love St. Philip's have worked diligently to clean that area up with, there used to be prostitution and drugs and liquor stores, and that is cleaned out. There's now some storefronts there into which the buildings are owned by the St. Philip's Foundation. They'd like to have tenants. And so there's sort of this, we have space, we love St. Philip's, and Ashley, kind of like the food truck idea in the first place, it was, let's do a restaurant on Martin Luther King. And I'm like, again, what do we know about, and it's gonna work out. It's gonna be great. And we get to employ some of these very same young people, all ages, not just young people, but people that just want a chance. And especially many of them are from that very area. And so we're incredibly excited to get this going, and it should be open hopefully by September.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah, sorry for the long story.
Oh, that's
we're
great.
Excited about it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
When you go back and look through your career and you look at defining moments that you would consider life lessons, share with our audience, what are those things that they need to know?
Well, defining moments, I mean, I guess I could think of a few along the way. I look at our investment portfolio today, and we have a few investments that we've held on to for, I guess that would be, well, if they were in the late 90s, whatever that makes it, 25 years or so. And it really started with just a couple people. And what I mean by that is it was, acknowledge what you don't know. Okay. And I didn't know what I was doing fundamentally. I think I had a decent, head on my shoulders. I think I could kind of, sort of navigate up from down, but what do I know really about an early stage business and what it takes to be successful and how it takes to, what it takes to meet payroll when you're running up against the wall or pick your scenario. I had never run a business before. In the investment business, I'd kind of like to make the joke that you give somebody money, anybody can write a check. Mm-hmm. But are you going to get something more in return someday? And, not everybody's going to bat 1,000. I have definitely not batted 1,000. But it's the people around you. It's putting yourself out there to kind of be humble enough to know you don't know everything. So I've had incredible mentors along the way. Now, one in particular, his name was Mike Bierman. I got to work with him for 20 plus years, and there are multiple people I could point to. And Mike is just one of them. But Mike, taught me the valuable lesson of, you can't fake curiosity. You either are or you aren't. If you're not interested, you ought not even be in a meeting. Okay. If you're going to go look at a business or if you're going to go meet an individual, if you can't sit there and have prepped and be able to ask good questions, and it's not the first question. Anybody could ask a question, but it's kind of that next level or the level after that question. Are you engaged? Are you present? Are you, what is it you're trying to gauge, from that meeting? Is that a person I want to trust with, quote, my money, unquote? Is that a person that I'd like to put in front of other people I know? Whatever the scenario, he was really, really diligent about what is it, we're trying to achieve here. And you got to ask the right questions. And the more you do that, I think the better it is to achieve context to know, because if you are any good at the investment business, you look at lots of things. Well, you can't say yes to everything, right? So again, it's relationships you have to better make that yes. And I just think of some of those early people that we met by I'm sort of meshing two things, but putting yourself out there, being willing to, going to a conference is not necessarily taking risk, right? But engaging with people in a way that, again, it's maybe not your nature, my nature, but I look back at a couple meetings in particular, meetings that led to how we got to meet some other people. And if we had never really established kind of that relationship building ethos and the context building ethos and the curiosity to ask questions, our investment portfolio would look a lot different today than it did. And again, I'm super grateful for kind of how, those themes that were kind of embedded in me, how they played out.
Listening to you talk, you have this energy, and it's like you're holding it in right now and want it to bust out. But you have amazing energy. You have great passion for what you do. it sounds like you've always had that passion, and it's really what's driven you. Do you still love what you do every day?
Well, it's funny you ask that, because the answer is absolutely yes. And then on any given day, it just depends kind of the things you've encountered that day. And I do love what I do. The things I get to work on, the real estate projects we've got an amazing project in Frisco. We have world-class partners. Just anybody, anywhere, I'm confident would step into my shoes and get to be partners with the people that I get to say are our partners. It's amazing. We've got a very unique project. It's right next to the Pro Museum. I don't know if that's technically Victory or Uptown. We sort of say Uptown, but it's where Goldman Sachs is going to be building their basically a regional headquarters and employ 6,000 people. And that's land that my father-in-law had for many, many years. And I get to work on this project. I get to work on things at Reunion that, again, people before me, my father-in-law, an individual named John Scoville, I was talking with one of his sons earlier today, just relationships and things that were done years ago that, in essence, I get to carry on the legacy. You mentioned legacy earlier, and the investments that we have. All that to say, any given day, there are going to be challenges, right? Not everything is a smooth, kind of up and to the right, trajectory. And sometimes you have a lot of those decisions that are going to fall on your shoulders. And I'm a very team-oriented person. I don't like to say I. I know I just said I a bunch of times a few minutes ago. It's pretty unusual. I do tend to hold it in because it's just my nature. Okay, next. Hey, great, let's celebrate, but we got to move. What's the next thing? And I don't necessarily like that about myself, but the point being, it can be kind of lonely when you can't pass the buck on some things. That's a lesson learned is, sometimes you want to elevate others, and you need to know when, and I've had to learn this and I'm still learning. You need to know when ultimately I've got to go fix that problem. It's not somebody else's problem to go fix it. It's mine, right? And I'd love to outsource as much as I can and love to have somebody else fix it. But, I'm still learning that trait. But I think it all ties back to, yes, I love what I get to do.
Great. So for the young people who are looking for their new opportunities, we have so many right now who just have trouble making their bills because of the economy the way it is, the job markets. There's just a different way that business is being done right now because of coming out of the post-COVID era. They're not getting necessarily the same training that they were because they are at home versus in the office where they had the mentors. And that's a good and a negative based on what the job is and who the person is. But I find a lot of those young people looking at business careers aren't necessarily getting that mentor. If you had a chance to pull somebody aside and spend a few minutes to say, I've made mistakes. These are the lessons that I've learned that I want to pass on to you. What is that one piece that they would take away?
Well, what comes to mind, I'm picturing a young man that he's, I want to be mindful of, he didn't ask me to mention his name, so I want to be super careful. He's a graduate student. He wants to be in a certain line of business, and he is incredibly persistent. And I say that with the absolute most respect and admiration. I mean, he's been unable to find a position in a career he wants to be in. And I think it's going to work out. All this is going the right direction. And I've not heard about the final yes here, but his persistence is about to pay off. And my point there is my first job out of school was with General Mills, and I actually really loved the job. Great company, and it was a sales job, and I was terrible, because a logical mind, if you feel like you've made a convincing, and I was a salesperson, like I said, and my wife and I, right out of school, lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm calling on all these grocery stores around Oklahoma, and most grocery stores there were independently owned. So if I go in, I'm talking with you, I'd like you to buy 10 cases of Cheerios and, whatever. And you're like, no, not today. And I'd be like, this is either Cheerios. This is like the best cereal out there. How could you say no? And the whole point of that was I really struggled with no. I didn't understand. And I didn't have the resilience and I struggled, frankly, with, it wasn't rejection. They're not rejecting me, but that was how I took it. What am I doing wrong? Okay. And frankly, I lacked a lot of skill at the sales, but my point is this young man that I referred to, it's not personal. And if you think what I want and what I tell young people is, you don't know what that individual's, what he's got on his mind. He might have some big decision he's got to make on a project he's doing or an investment he's doing or whatever. You just don't know. And so it's not about you if they say, I can't meet with you today or, whatever. Don't give up. Don't give up. And I think, what I see is I see myself in a lot of these young people of, okay, I must not be meant to do that because I got one no or I got a couple no's, and I just want to, pour into these kids and say, you've got it. The fact you're even reaching out to me after you've had a couple no's or more than a couple no's tells me you badly want to be in this business. You've got especially if they do. If they don't, I'll be honest with them about, hey, maybe your skill set is better here or here. But if they have something that works for X, whatever X might be, hey, don't give up. You've got this. You'll find the right person, but just, be respectfully persistent. You can do this.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you give so much in the community. Your family is so active and represents our community so well in so many different ways. So again, we thank you for being here and we thank you for your leadership.
Wow, very kind. Thank you. Honored to be here.
Thank you. So this is today's episode of Legends in Leadership. Our guest was Chris Kleinert. And Chris, thank you again for being with us.